Welcome to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club where we play games and brew good conversation together.
Today's episode is a conversation with the creative lead and one of the artists of A Space for the Unbound, Dimas Novan from Mojican Studios.
Yes, in addition to talking about the general inspiration for the game itself, we also discuss why time and place, specifically 90s rural Indonesia, are essential to this story's identity, how community and family influence personal well-being, and how the team prepared to address a topics as heavy as anxiety and depression in their otherwise very wholesome slice of life adventure game.
So this episode is spoiler-free in terms of specific plot points, but we do discuss themes found within the game throughout, and at the very end, we do have a small spoiler section. So don't worry, we will give everyone a heads up before those questions kick off.
Yes. As always, if you have comments, thoughts, questions, anything you'd like to share, bring the conversation over to Discord, where you can join a community of folks discussing the game this month, or send a message over to jenny@geeksandgrounds.com, and we will get back to you.
We are drinking a nice set of chais tonight, so get your mugs ready, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
All right, well, welcome so much to the podcast, Dimas. It's really good to have you here. Thank you for taking time out of your workday to chat with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been really an honor for me to be in this podcast.
We've talked about what the game is and defined it, but we would love to kick off with you describing the game in your own words.
Yeah, A Space for the Unbound is a magical realism adventure about two high school sweethearts with supernatural powers. Their name is Atma and Raya. Both of them are facing the end of high school, end of the world. And in this game, player will explore a colorful urban city inspired by 90s and early 2000s Indonesia. And player will dive into people's mind, resurface their buried secrets, and stopping the world's end. And the most important things, they can pet cats. Yeah.
It is the most important thing.
Yeah, it is the most important things.
We had a moment while we were watching the trailer when before we played, and we didn't know much about the game. And we're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. We're seeing 90s. We're seeing kind of end of the world. And then there were cats. And it was like our excitement just shot way up. We were so excited for the cats.
Yeah, I can tell it's a 10 out of 10 game already.
Yeah, I actually watched your guys' reaction. It's really priceless for me. And yeah, it's been really surprising for me personally, because I didn't know like a feature like where you can pet the animal is very much needed. Actually, we just want like it is a side activity that player can relax themselves in the game, but actually it's become the one of the main selling point for the game. So yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it was really exciting. I think we had played a game last month where we had discussed specifically there was no way to pet the cute animals or the stuffed animals.
Oh, okay.
And it was like every time you walked by one, I was like, oh, I really want to touch this thing. Like, we can't.
Well, and I love that you can pet the cats and then you name them. And that for me sold me completely, because it's like now every time I walk by, like Wizard, I have a cat named Wizard, and I'm like every time I walk by I have to pet Wizard, I have to pet I think it's Seymour. So it's like all of these cats that aren't just like pettable cats, but they're now my friends.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually we really want player feels very connected with the city in there, so we gave player feature to name the cats, like the selection of cats. It will be tedious, like if players have to like name the cats by themselves. So we got a selections names that might hopefully give them some little bit laughter.
I was definitely enjoying it. I was terrified because one of the recommended names was Warlord, and I was like, "Oh no! If I name this cat Warlord, this is a magical realism game. Is this cat gonna attack me and take over the world?" So...
Yeah. We got some really fun deciding the name for the cats. In Indonesia, especially like in the office, like we always see cat as our boss. So it's pretty natural for us to give a cat its very strong name. Just like in the game, you have a cat named Bosku. Bosku in Indonesian is like a slang word for my boss or our boss.
Bosco. Oh my gosh, this is so cute.
Great.
And
This is the lore we need.
Yes.
yeah, because like we Indonesian sometimes refer ourselves as a slave of a cat sometimes. Yeah, it's just jokes, but it was really fun just to see cat as our boss.
That's so funny because I was wondering if the Bosco was a play on Basque, the like Egyptian cat
Okay, yeah.
goddess. But hearing this is way better.
Way better. It's so good.
It's so creative.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the inspiration, the kind of the 90s and end of the world. I'd love to know what were some of the specific manga or movies or anime that inspired this game?
Oh yeah, there are quite numbers of it, but if I would like to pick, start from the manga, of course. I'm really inspired by the Doraemon. If you guys know that manga, it's like a 90s hit in Indonesia. Every kids in the block is reading Doraemon and watch those Sunday cartoons Doraemon. And we've been the main character in Doraemon is Nobita and Doraemon, and like it's every kid's dream to be Nobita. Like you can realize your childhood dream using Doraemon gadgets and stuff. Especially for Doraemon, it's kind of inspired by that, where like you've been given a superpowers, and then that the superpowers you use is gone wrong by use, and then you got the consequences of it. Yeah, start from there, and then I also really inspired by Aria by Kozue Amano. It's manga about like a future Mars, where Mars is actually flooded with water, and then in the Mars there is a town named Neo Venezia. People in there is actually living like in futuristic Venezia, and then it was very calm and very peaceful story about I don't know how do you say it, like gondola service. It has been very peaceful town. It tells story about peaceful town, and then how the everybody is helping each other and something like that. It's really influencing how the storytelling in Space for the Unbound. And then the next one is A Flower of Evil. If you guys ever know, by Shuzo Oshimi. It's kind of hardcore psychological manga about growing up. It's kind of dark. It's kind of really, really dark. At first, I think it was really fit for a Space for the Unbound, but after I reading the like couple chapters of Flowers of Evil, it's just, man, I can't read something like this. It's just too dark. It will be terrifying experience. I even feeling scary if I like have to write something like this, have to make something like this. It feels very personal to the author himself. So I don't think I'll just take some inspiration from it and then like trying to adapt it into my own style or our own style, making it much more wholesome. And I think the last manga that I can mention, it's actually not manga, but more like the author is Kubonuchi Eisaku. Maybe you guys familiar with Carol and Tuesday on Netflix. Yes, he is the character designer for Carol and Tuesday. He is actually like also manga artist, and yeah, he is very good at telling us a wholesome story, even though the topic that he bring up is really, really dark. It's about yakuza, and it's about like Runaway Bride. It's the theme is really heavy, but he has this way to tell the story in very wholesome way, and it's very fun way with humor, but sometimes it doesn't really afraid to go dark when the time has come, and it has been really influenced us on how telling story in Space for the Unbound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really powerful to have these wholesome stories that provide a really safe place for people to explore these really heavy themes. Because it's one thing to have like a really heavy, dark psychological story and you just kind of go in there from the jump and it can be really intense. But if you have a slice of life, wholesome setting and foundation, it allows you to feel okay as you dive into the heavier stuff. I feel like.
Yeah, we had discussed the opening prologue with the scene between Nirmala and her father. Well, I guess the father and Atma when he's like in the house.
Yeah.
That was it was one of those moments where it's like my stomach clenched. I was like, oh man, like I know this kind of the fear and like the energy in a house like that. So yeah, the storytelling, and it was such a subtle detail to have like the banging on the door, but it was like, wow, like a really powerful moment in that opening prologue.
Yeah. It's actually like really it has been our great struggle like to present the story in much more lighter way, because we know we will deal like with a very heavy themes, but how do we make it much more digestible for players around the world? So that's why we try to bring some various light elements like petting the cats, and then doing like doing a school bucket list and watching movies and something like that. We try to make it to make the experience it's much more lighter, and then when I think the time comes, we go try to different roads, and yeah, it's been really nice to know that player around the world, I think can digest that. Yeah.
I really enjoyed what you mentioned just a few minutes ago about how you really wanted to make this game personal. Like there's a lot of you that came into the game, and you had mentioned that like in a previous interview that specifically setting the game in a specific place and time in the 90s and in rural Indonesia was very important. And I wanted to talk about also the concept of the anime pilgrimage, because you mentioned that was a big inspiration, and I wanted to know why that became so significant to you as you were making the game.
Maybe I'll start. It's also a continuation of the last question, like the movies that influence me or us. It's actually when I'm in high school, I read some article about anime pilgrimage. Like I know at that time I didn't know that a lot of place in anime is actually a real life place. Like I know it might be inspired, but I know it might be inspired, but to know that it's actually a real life place and people like willing to go to that place to just take a photos and compare it to the anime counterparts has been really fascinating for me. Since that day, I've been always dream of like seeing my town drown in a very anime way, so we can like we can have a new appreciation towards that place. Yeah, but because like every time like I see an beautiful anime backgrounds like pops in my mind that damn, I really want to go to Japan, something like that. Yeah, it's always something like that. And then I know that back in the day there is like a Korean drama, Winter Sonata.
Oh my gosh, yes. that was one of my first favorites.
there is these scenes where like the main characters holding hands, and then the girl is like walking up on the laid down tree, and then that scene becomes so popular, and then everybody in the Korea like go to that place to just try to recreate that scene. Even and the tree broke down because a lot of people tried to walk uh, on top of that. Yeah, it's been like I've been kind of dreaming something like that, like to capture a moment from my hometown and then place it to the media. I don't know. It can be a manga or it can be anime. It can be a movie or something like that. And then at that time, I learned about Makoto Shinkai in my high school. Both both his art book. It's in I don't. It's in here actually. Both his art book in
Oh,
my
awesome.
That's amazing.
yeah. I read this and then see there are lots of real life photography involved, and then it just really opened a new ways of thinking of for me, like, oh wow, this kind of environment that's actually maybe a little bit dull, you can turn into very beautiful in anime, and then when you look back to the real life again, it's actually really beautiful.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that.
That reminds me of
yeah,
what I really love about especially Miyazaki films. They capture this really beautiful simplicity and magic in the boring, mundane things
yeah,
in life. It's like you look at things that are so average that they become magical. And I think that's a superpower for games, especially the ones that I've noticed that do slice of life or wholesome themes. They really allow people to see the magic in their everyday lives.
yeah. I actually come to appreciation about the Ghibli films that sometimes the main character's room or like the setting rooms is very cluttered and very chaotic. But it still drawn really beautifully and influenced me in funny way when I see my own house kind of cluttered and chaos. I think, oh no, it is Ghibli aesthetic.
It's
Yeah.
Ghibli-esque. It's okay.
Yeah, this is
That's okay.
official
This is
now.
Ghibli aesthetic.
I remember when we were watching the trailer, one of the first really striking moments in the art style was seeing Raya standing on the bridge, and her skirt is kind of flapping in the
No, yeah,
wind. And I was like, that image, that scene was so beautiful. And I was like, God, is that a real life bridge? Could we go to that bridge?
yes, of course. It's actually a real life bridge, but actually today it's kind of going some changes a little bit in there, but the bridge is still there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's like a road that I always take when I go to my uni, like in the days, and in there that you can see a really open sky. It's really beautiful.
Mm.
And back in days when the road is not really, and the road it's kind of like deserted place actually. But right now there are new road that we can take to go there. It's become quite crowded, but when things were very silent back then, it was really beautiful place, and every time things got quite heavy in my end, whenever I go to the bridge, just passing through, riding my motorbike, it's quite an experience. It's little bit clearing my head. I really love going to that bridge because because that is the like the highest ground around my neighborhood, and there you can see like a beautiful open sky. Like, yeah, it's
I love
yeah,
I love finding those little moments in real life that you can, or little spaces that you can really make your own. I remember I'm from Indiana, and there's this little trail that runs behind a hospital and along a river. And it was my favorite place on like Saturday
oh okay,
mornings. I would just like go on a walk, and that was the place that I hoped that I would end up via whatever trajectory and route that I was going to take. And I think one of the things that you've done really beautifully with this game is I had the town map in my head
oh
Yeah.
almost
really,
immediately. I
Yeah.
was like, I know exactly where the internet cafe is. I know exactly where the
Mm.
arcade is. I know where the cafe is. And it was like, you did such a great job of making these spaces feel very real
Mm-hmm.
and in their place. And you called it out. It's magical realism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So you put little twists on each of them, and it's like every place had a moment in the game and in the story that we got to feel like there's magic in this cafe, there's magic in this dojo, and I thought you did a really great job with that. How was that an intentional process as you guys were going through and deciding that space and how you're going to make it mean something?
Yeah. Actually, at first, I just draw. We just place everything that we want without really knowing what's inside, what's going to be there. All we really want to do is just like paying a tribute to our times growing up, and then like to Indonesian's typical city, especially in the more like rural areas. We just really like place whatever that can calling back to our memories back in the day, like the internet cafe, and then the colonial era cafe style, and then like the arcade, because it has been very dear memory to us. And then we built the town, we built the building, and then we try to give it a story a little bit, and then while by the developing time process, we try to imagine more deeply about what actually happens in there, what what Atma will find in this place, and then we try to make it as much connecting at each other, so people like can have their like can have can know the where which if we take left, where they will end up, and if we take strike, where they will end up. We try to make everything's like quite obviously, oh, this is going here and I will end up here. We'll try to make everything is memorable as possible, so yeah.
Well, I appreciate you telling us more about space and the places that we get to go. Let's talk a little bit about time. So time is very interesting in the game. Could you describe the ways that you thought through how to represent and take on the passage of time in the game?
Yeah. To avoid spoilers, I will name this particular character as this particular character. Yeah. At first, we make the story first, and then at first we settled on the genre of the story. It will be a mystery and psychology with a magical realism sprinkled on top of it. We create a very brief description of how nature of the supernatural power works in the game, and then make a brief description what kind of psychological condition of this particular characters undergoes. And we really also want to emphasize the theme of melancholy and then theme of nostalgic. And then we move on to we make the backstory for these characters with a just simple outline, and then we move to another characters, what's their connection to these characters and how they will impact each other. And we went through building up the psychology of these main characters and what makes them behave in a certain way. Yeah, it comes it revolves around their backstory first, and we move on to the most challenging parts of the game. It's like we have to tell this story to the point of view of Atma. And for folks who already finished the game, you know how the story unfolds, and it has been really challenging for us to like tell this point of view of Atma. But we really try to take notes from other movies like Donnie Darko and Truman Show.
Yeah.
Yes.
and Donnie Darko and Truman Show, we try to take notes from it, and Inceptions also. We try to adapt some of their storytelling techniques to place it on Atma, and we really want this experience become very rewarding, and then after that we like put how the world works, the true nature of NPCs and town, and then lastly we invent some terms named space dive to connect everything, character with character, their psychology and their town, what is actually happening, and the latter part is we mix up with the memory flashback to help player to get necessary information before like the later chapter, so it will be make much more sense for players. Oh, this is actually what is happening, and I understand this character because what they have been going through. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's been very back-to-back process, but it's really fun. It's like 50% of planning and then 50% of improvisation. Uh, yeah, it's I personally take a lot of impression from like filmmaking process where we have this storyboard, we have this script, and then it translated into storyboard. It undergoing some changes a little bit, and when the shooting process started, there's also like the actor comes to play, and then the script changed a little bit for once again, and then and lastly when the editing part comes in, even the movies change a little bit. There will be sometimes it feels very random, but sometimes it feels very rewarding and satisfying when everything comes to places, because like it feels like duct taping some a broken pottery, if I would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I'm really curious because you said, it wasn't just you had the story, you knew exactly what you were going to make, and you made the game, and it was, finished and simple as that. In reworking and editing and adjusting the story and the characters, was maybe without spoiling too much, was there one character that shifted the most as you were going through and thinking, oh, this character has to change more for this story to make sense? Or did they all stay generally pretty similar and other elements changed around them?
Yeah, it actually almost every main characters, Maraya, Marin, Lulu, and then Eric have gone undergoing some uh, additional changes, but their main characters their main traits wasn't really that changed. But we added some a new backstories to them to make the way they behave makes much more sense, and especially for Atma and Raya, we added some story bits here and there. We continuously checking the script. We have helped we have been helped testing the game, and then uh, the tester said, "Oh, this doesn't really work." Uh, our producer testing, "Oh, this doesn't really work. This needs some more spice." And the narrative team also saying, "This is need more spice. This is need more reason." Yeah, it has been really back to back process. Yeah,
As you put so much care into this world, from the specific details of the location and the setting, the timing, the characters, and all the struggles they went through. I'm curious, what are some of the favorite details that you captured? Was it those moments like the bridge, that's from your hometown that you remember? Was there a character that you really feel fondly about? Do you have a
yeah,
favorite, or is it hard to pick?
yeah. If we talk about that, uh, it's actually like a tribute to our hometown in Surabaya. It's a tribute to the time we growing up. So we, I think it's kind of like uh, everything detail that we've been put is has been really my personal favorite, because
Yeah.
it really allows us to like looking back through our childhood memories, through our like growing up years, and not talking about like future, but we talking about past. It has been really melancholic process for us. Uh, we such example like there's a lot of building that has been gone from the game. So
Mm.
uh, the bad things about I don't necessarily saying the bad things, but the sad things about it. There aren't really many documentations about the time we were growing up. So we kind of digging our memory by ourselves, just and looking for photo reference and try our best to remember things like the way before. and it sometimes makes me imagine like how many years this building will be last. Like maybe 2 or 3 years, this building will be gone and will be changed by other stuff. yeah, yeah. The modern world has been like going undergoing very rapid changes that it feels kind of really. I don't know if it's making sense or not. It's kind of like it's hard to living in the present for me personally. That's why this game is really special. Like every detail that we've been put into the game is will be forever crystallized in the game. And we really also my personal favorite probably is like drawing a colonial era influenced architecture. Indonesia once has been occupied by the Dutch, and their European architecture influenced a lot in a lot of our buildings, such as school primarily, and then such as the cafe. Also, we've been really having a great time, having a blast drawing that part, and then reenact some our memories back then. And then we found came across a new appreciation of the place that we're currently living in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you find that as you were cultivating your memories and trying to think about what to include, was there something that you remembered that you had previously kind of forgotten about? Did any memories like activate, like, oh, I didn't think about, this arcade game, but now that I'm making this game, oh my gosh, I remember I played this as a kid? Or did you have any memories that kind of came back to you as you were making the
Yes,
game?
there is, especially when making the arcade. I remember like back in the days, me and my big sister and her friends taking a walk, like 15-minute walks, going to the local arcade, and my sister will playing a Dance Dance Revolution with her friends.
Yes.
every evening, and I'm just there chilling, watching my big sister playing, just looking at them. And then I remember when I drove the general store, there is when I drawing the detail of the general store, when the team trying to follow the detail, we realized there is a lot of a badminton racket, and we know back in the day that children in our neighborhood play badminton every evening, and that's why in general store there is generally a sport equipment like a soccer ball, and then the badminton racket, and then there's also a custom where like there is a bird cage in the general store. Is actually like kind of old people's culture to keep a bird in the house as a social status. Yeah, that's why.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because like the way the birds beautifully chirping is like it's like giving a beautiful music to neighborhood, something like that. Yeah, a lot of memories are coming back, and also like in the when the first chapter of Space for the Unbound, when we go to the cinema, actually nowadays in Indonesia there aren't really independent cinema theater building. Every cinema, if you want to watch a movies, you have to go to mall or to plaza, and then you watch in there. It's almost impossible to find like independent theater building, and yeah, it has been very great memories for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You were just talking about how things are changing really rapidly, and like the town that you remember from the 90s has evolved and changed quite a bit. What do you hope people will say about A Space for the Unbound in, let's say, 5 or 10 years? the game we just finished last month with Geeks and Grounds, it was almost 10 years old. And so it was interesting talking about a game that was 10 years old. So we were just talking about how things have changed.
Yeah.
How do you hope people think about this game in 5 to 10 years?
Well, actually, I hope Space for Unbound becomes a kit for people around the world to experience the beauty and the hecticness of Indonesia, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. I hope this becomes a time capsule for this place and this era. Yeah, but actually, when people ask about when if I have been asked about people expectation, to be honest, I don't really have any. But for myself, for myself personally, I just really want to preserve the time we're growing up, and hopefully, it survive many years to come. Because there aren't really any much like mm, representation of our places in the world, and I hope this game becomes one of them. Yeah, it's, and yeah, it's I hope really do hope this becomes people's first get to know Indonesia. It's just,
We talked exactly about that when we watched the game trailer. How we had not engaged with, and I couldn't think of any Indonesian media games or stories that I had gotten to be a part of or play before. This is really my first time, and you guys did such a great job of representing this space that it felt like a real town. Like the places were interconnected, the people were interconnected. And so I'm really excited to see how people's love for this game continues to grow over time. I think you guys did a really, as your goal is to like create that time capsule, you did a really, really wonderful job of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope people like that. Yeah.
Yeah. A slight tangent, because we've talked a lot about the setting of the game and the foundation of the story, and we've alluded to the fact that there are really heavy themes even amidst this very cozy game. And I wanted to ask about how, as a team, maybe you as an individual, prepared yourself to address some of these heavier topics, because this game goes really hard. Like I will say, by the end, I was bawling, I was crying, because it hit, not only because the theme was so heavy, but because like I felt like this was very real, very tangible, and very grounded in what felt like to me representative of very personal experiences. Whether or not all of them were true, the elements were all very real. And so I'm curious how you all planned and how you prepared to address all of that.
Yeah, we have a preparation, like we consult with a psychologist to confirm the outline we already made is like qualified from a psychological perspective, and we also try to dig what is the baseline for mentally healthy people from psychology perspective, and then we found out that one of the baseline traits of people having a healthy mind is when they can function and doing activities in everyday life and can communicate with other people, and then they can become more productive. Like and that moment, me personally, okay, it's okay if you have like symptoms in the end. Like everything else, you really need time to heal and to improve. As long as you can still function day-to-day basis, it doesn't bring harm to you or other people or society. It's completely okay to heal slowly, and that became one of our inspiration to define the character struggle. That everything needs some kind of process to understand one's way of thinking, to recognize their trauma or their feelings, and we have to not rushing change, and healing and being willing to face and process all of those emotion is the key. And we try to treat each chapter. We try to make sure players have a gradual understanding of how these particular characters behave in a certain way. We want players to experience these characters: angst, happiness, sadness, dreams, hope. There are many emotions to make players understand that this character certainly is, in the end, by all means, just a regular human with all the flaws. I think we continuously check the script if it's done very respectfully, and then we the thing that I really love about we really love about Space for the Unbound is how every character has their own weakness. Like in the very first part of the game, the prologue, Atma actually cannot swim.
Yeah.
it's it's kind of ridiculous, but it happens in real life. Like when the things come, when the critical time comes, your shortcomings like haunts you, and then uh, you got the consequences, and like uh, it's really we really tried so hard to make sure that every character has their own positive, but they also have their own negative. Uh, at first, there's this one character that is quite perfect, but in the end, it doesn't really represent a person at all. Like this, this perfect character won't exist in real life, and it won't make a believable story. And and then we try to like uh, deep dive, deep dive into like uh, their their characters, and found, oh, this this is this is an opportunity like to tell a shortcoming of these characters because of their own positive. We try to balance between like positive, negative, and then uh, their talent and then their shortcomings. We and we always try to be in the, especially in the last part of the game, we try to like what will happen if you faced by somebody that is already breaking down, like crumble down. uh I watched a movie named Manchester by the Sea. uh yeah, that movie really moved me so much. I think it is really one of great representation of people are in very bottom place and trying to rise up, but actually still in the end still unknown if they can tackle their past properly. But I think it is quite respectfully done. And then and in this game we would like to do the same. Like it's okay to have like to have a muddy past. In the end, your future is still a clean slate, right? Something like that. Yeah.
I actually think this is perfect because the thing that we were also really curious about was how you built this community, these people who have interconnected lives. I think I was shocked. You mentioned how every character kind of had their own flaws and their own backstories, and I was shocked how almost every one of the townspeople that we met not only had their own backstory, but they had these truly interconnected lives. And it like we compared it a little bit to Link's Awakening, where it's like, well, this person has 17 eggs, and that person needs 17 eggs, and so I'm going to go from one person to the other. This story, Space for the Unbound, instead of doing that, set up a connection between characters. And so as you're going between these characters, you're learning more about their relationship with one another. So I think that's the question that I kind of have here is, what did you think about as you built out this whole town of people with interconnected lives?
Yeah. At first, we really want to make the townsfolk reflect one of the characters, like psychology and egoism. So every townspeople is like, it's kind of like a hopes and dreams of this one characters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
cool. Okay.
so everything we try to return to that character. Everything we try to return to that character, and then we also like try to a keyword that we usually use is irony. Like every character has their own irony. Like if you play the game, like in the second chapter where you face this the chef, like she has a struggle to which uh what kind of chef that she really wants to become. Actually, every choice is good, right? But in the end, we as a human just can only pick one, can only pick one, and then what happens is it actually doesn't really matter like which one to choose, because in the end we have to sacrifice things that if we already try to take some kind of path. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm like, this is something I need to like, oh.
We have to let go of things.
We have to pick one.
We have to pick one.
Yeah.
No.
Why we can pick everything?
Yes.
This is
Something
coming
like
for
that.
me in a way that I didn't.
I was
need.
not expecting this.
Yeah.
This is very good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually like also a concept of space dive that we've coming up. Space dive is actually like in the game you can space dive that to people that are confused, right? They are confused between choices, and if they don't pick any choices, they become confused, and then we can space dive them. We can help them to make a choice. It is the spirit that we try to carry throughout the game. So everybody in the town has to fight their own identity. Like they have to set their identity right. They have to looking back at their past. They have to looking back at their future, and then we as a player will help them to pick one and to resurface their memory, something like that. We always keep that in mind in building the characters in the game. Yeah, to be honest, it's kind of blank canvas. It is like really the place for us to having fun in making the game. Like there's like one moment like when I talk with my narrative lead Elwin in the script that he presenting like a guy dressed in dark suit, a guy dressed in dark suit just like being confused what future is about. And then I don't really think twice about it because it looks really fun, and then it looks really really real. Although on paper it sounds very ridiculous, but we have a lot of moments something like that we just like being very instantaneous, and then we try to build a backstory for these characters, and then we try to apply it to the game. Yeah. Yeah, the key word for like the people in the game is irony, and then the future that they really anxious about.
Mm-hmm. What resonated with me too is this idea, and kind of going back to this idea of community, is you have people all over town who are confused, and what's really nice is that you're not necessarily solving their problems for them, but you are planting the seed, which is kind of the flower in there is also sort of a thing, but you're planting these seeds for them to be able to make a choice. And so what's really cool is that it's about you can to some degree help yourself, but sometimes you do need someone else to come in and just give you a little push, give you a little guidance so that you can make the choice. And that way you can pull yourself out of whatever confusion or struggle that you're going through. And I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, that is also one thing that we really would like to keep in mind. Like, no matter how we try to help other people, in the end, the choice it's in their hands. Something like that. All we can do is just like helping to sort things out, and then helping them thinking much more clear, and then hopefully they see things in a different way, and then they make decisions. We really want that kind of experience, that in the end the choice is on the other people. No matter how hard we try to help, in the end it's their choice. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I want to make sure and respect your time because we've had such a good conversation.
Okay.
We have 2 sections left. We have a fun round, quick round of
Okay.
just quick quick questions, and then we'll have a bonus spoiler round that we can go through really quickly for folks who have played the game. So for a quick, fun question, Atma spends a lot of time collecting a lot of things in the game, the Yoman, the bottle caps, and we were curious if you have anything that you like to collect in particular.
Well, I actually collecting bottle cap myself.
Oh, that's so good.
That's so cool. Wait, are the bottle caps real? Like, are the bottle caps actually from the game, like real sodas, or inspired from the real sodas that you collect?
Yes, it is actually. It is like, but it's actually my collection is from my middle school time.
Oh.
So when making the game, it's oh god, memories are back, are coming back to me.
That's so good.
The lucky thing is this bottle cap is still survive despite so many years. And I myself personally, I've been really having a really great time like seeing these bottle caps. Like, let me give you some example. There is like this two Coca-Cola. This Coca-Cola bottle cap, it has a different price tag, and it has been really fun for me, like to know over years, over time, the price gradually changes, and then there is like,
you included that in the game.
Yeah.
You pick up a koala cola, and one's like 500 rupiah, and the other one, they were like, after the financial crisis, this one became like 1,000, or I think it was something like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you put that in the game.
We included that in the game, and then there is like a World Cup edition.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
When the World Cup comes, like every company like really try to celebrate it through their products, and then it's a gold mine for me personally because this is my time to collect everything. So, yeah. Back in the day, also collecting bottle cap is actually not really a popular hobby, but I mean, collecting bottle cap for the graphic is not really popular, but the popular things back in the day to collect bottle caps is to collect the quotes in the back. See, the quotes there are like a funny or wise quotes in the back that the company put in there. So yeah, so you can collect it, just have fun with it. Yeah. Actually, it is like my hobby back in the past. I try to put it in the game. Everybody agrees. Yeah, hooray about that.
That's so cool. For me, it would have been in the 90s collecting Pokemon cards, except for all of my cards got stolen while I was in middle school by my middle school bully from my locker, and he never got in trouble for it. And
where is he? We need to find him.
I don't want to call him out publicly, but yeah.
Oh my god! It must be a very heartbreaking experience. I also remember that seeing my big brothers collecting Dragon Ball trading cards, and now it's already gone.
Cool.
to remember it. Oh, it just give a hole on your heart.
Should we go to the spoiler round?
Yeah, I think so.
To make sure we have some time?
I think so, yeah. So before we go to the spoiler round, we want to make sure that folks who listen, who have not yet finished the game, you have this chance to like make sure you don't spoil yourself. But before those folks head out, Dimas, we wanted to make sure to give you a chance to say, where can folks go to support the game? Where can they find you in the studio and just learn more about what you all are doing and what you plan to do in the future?
Oh yeah. In the future, there will be more language to come. For Space for the Unbound. Maybe by the time this podcast online, maybe the update is already live, and hopefully players all around the world can enjoy this game more. Yeah. It's maybe not related to Space for the Unbound, but Mojikan Studio is doing a game jam. Like after 7 years making this game, we decided to take a little break. And then we're doing a game jam then where everybody in the social media can help us pick out the title, pick up the premise. It's already been done, and then we're in the midway process of like brainstorming for the game. Yeah, and let's look forward to that.
Awesome. So for bonus spoiler round, this is the last warning for anyone who wants to avoid the spoilers. Joel, would you like to kick it off?
We thought there were so many questions that we had. The one that was most important to me is we refer it near the end of the game. Atma is specifically called the hero of the story, and I'm curious, knowing what we know about how a lot of this is happening in Raya's mind, Nirmala's mind. Do you see him as the hero, or would you point to a different character?
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of, but me in Atma is like the hero of the story, like. But in a way, I would love to think that there are two heroes in the character, and the first is the player itself, because like we write Atma as a blank slate, like he don't know anything about what is actually happening in this world, uh, and then we gradually giving him information as and Atma becomes like the glass for the players to look out uh, through Raya's past and Nirmala's past, something like that. And every time I see like people's playing the game, like uh, I don't know if it's making sense or not, but sometimes I feel would like to thank the players for helping Raya getting out from her dreams.
Oh,
Me personally.
My heart.
oh.
Me personally thinking that way. Yeah. And the second hero of the story is, I think, I also think that Raya is a hero of the story. Like she goes through a lot and she finally overcomes her own fear and ugly past. I don't know if she ever existed in the real world. Sometimes I personally really want to congratulate her and then saying thank you for not giving up. Because in like this first month we got a really lot of message that inspired by Raya's story. Right? We received so many heartwarming messages about some person decided to talk to their friends once again, trying to really inspired by how Raya is not perfect by all means, just human, and she is struggling. You know, yeah, it's really heartwarming for us to know that Raya's story can help a lot of people.
Well, I do, and I'll just make this a quick note. So Jenny and I both used to teach middle school, and I have personally worked with a number of students that had situations very similar to Raya. And if any of you who are listening, if you're listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube video, if you find yourself identifying with some of Raya's experiences with household abuse or trauma or the extreme bullying and things like that, I felt a high degree of comfort playing this game. Like it was hard at moments, but the end, being able to work through some of that trauma. I didn't know that you guys had consulted with a psychologist or therapist as a part of building this game, but it felt so true to many of the students that I worked with that found themselves in similar situations. So really well done to you.
Oh yeah. Thank you. The one of the things that we really always want to strive is like for Raya character especially, like we have to let her expressing her emotions in order to reach people's heart. We have to experience that side of her, right? Like one maybe I honestly it takes a lot of energy. I kind of experiencing it myself, like handling that kind of situation. But being there and being there, being exist, like allowing themselves to express them, allowing one person to express their emotion is really important. That is one thing that we really want to express in the game, that and then giving them some time to process is also really really important for us. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us, for deep diving, space diving
Yeah.
into just more. I'm not
that was good.
I'm
That's
not
very
getting
good.
tired of that joke. Into the game with us. It's been such an honor to be able to talk to you and learn more about not only the game itself, but the thought and care that went to it. Again, just to mirror what Joel said, playing it felt very real in a lot of very special ways. And so really appreciate you creating something like this, you and the whole team.
Thank you for playing the game. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really quickly, for folks interested in following maybe on social media, where can they find Mojiken Studio?
Oh, yeah, you can find our social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to follow Tokyo Productions, they are also in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to follow the Space for the Unbound account specifically, we also on Facebook and Twitter.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. It was great having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you a lot for having me.
Thanks, Dimas.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us at Geeks and Grounds. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and geeksandgrounds.com. Everything is at Geeks and Grounds. Thanks so much for joining tonight. May your brews be ever bubbling.
Have a great night, everybody.